The lights inside the alien ship flickered as the crew moved silently through the long metallic hallway. Fear hung in the air like thick smoke. At the center of the ship, locked behind a thick energy field, was a cage. And inside the cage was... The creature It was huge, twice the size of a full-grown warrior. Muscles moved under thick black skin, and its claws could tear through metal. Glowing red eyes watched everyone who passed. It didn't make a sound. It didn't need to. Its presence alone was enough to terrify the aliens on board. The aliens called it the Howler, though no one had ever heard it howl. It had been captured from a death world, a planet so dangerous even machines refused to land there. 5 alien soldiers had died trying to trap it. Now it sat calmly inside the cage, waiting. Captain Vale, a tall blue-scaled alien, stood near the control panel, watching the cage with tight jaws. "Keep 5 guards posted at all times," he ordered, "and no one goes near it. No one. Just..." Then, a new figure stepped onto the deck. He was human. The guards tensed. The human was not part of the normal crew. His name was Mark. He wore a simple jumpsuit, carried no weapons, and walked with a calm, almost lazy stride. "Who allowed a human technician here?" hissed one of the guards. "He's the maintenance officer," another replied. "Assigned by the Galactic Council. He checks security systems." Captain Vell narrowed his eyes, but said nothing. He stepped aside as Mark approached the cage. The human stopped a few meters from the barrier. His eyes scanned the creature. The beast stared back, unblinking. A long pause. Then Mark tilted his head and said, "Is it house-trained?" The room went silent. Every alien turned toward him in disbelief. One even dropped his weapon in shock. Captain Vell growled, "That is a Class 7 Predator, human. It wiped out a scout team in under 3 minutes. You think it's a pet?" Mark didn't answer. He just kept staring at the creature, as if studying it. Then, without warning, he took one slow step closer. The beast didn't react. No growl, no hiss. Its red eyes followed him, but remained calm. Mark took out a scanner and pretended to check the cage's energy field. But secretly, he was watching the beast's face. It was looking at him strangely, not with hate, not with hunger. There was something else in its eyes. Recognition. The beast's ear twitched. Its nostrils flared. It leaned forward, just slightly, sniffing the air. Mark smiled. "It remembers me. Years ago, Mark had been on a survival mission on a death world. His shuttle had crashed. Injured and alone, he had survived for weeks. During that time, he found a young creature, this same species trapped under debris. He had freed it, fed it, even talked to it during lonely nights. And then one day, it vanished. Now, here it was, older, stronger, deadlier, but it still remembered. Mark slowly reached into his pocket and took out a small cube. It played a soft whistle sound, a sound he used back then to call the creature. The aliens tensed. The guards raised their weapons. The beast stood. Its muscles rippled as it moved to the edge of the cage. But instead of roaring, it sat down quiet and calm. Mark looked back at the guards. "I think it likes me." Captain Vell was frozen. What did you just do?" "I just said hello," Mark replied. One alien whispered, "That thing should be trying to kill you?" Mark shrugged. "Guess it's in a good mood." Vell stepped forward, his eyes full of suspicion. "What do you know about this creature, human?" "Not much," Mark lied, "but maybe it knows I'm not a threat." The captain didn't believe him, but he had no proof. He turned to the guards. "Double the security, and keep this human away from the cage." As they left, the beast watched Mark. Its eyes softened for just a moment, almost like a pet watching its owner walk away. Mark didn't look back. But he smiled to himself. Something big was coming, and he wasn't sure if it would be the aliens, the beast, or both. But one thing was clear. This was no ordinary creature. This was a friend. A deadly, loyal friend. And it was just the beginning. Asterisk inside his small maintenance room. Mark sat on a crate, staring at the metal floor. Around him, the humming of the alien ship's engines filled the silence. But in his mind, all he heard was the soft breathing of the creature, the same creature he thought he had lost forever, years ago. Mark had been a junior survival tech on a doomed expedition. His ship had crashed during a survey mission on a hostile planet, a death world covered in storms, lava pits, and strange life forms. He was the only survivor. For 3 weeks, Mark lived in the wild with no help, no weapons, and only his suits. Emergency pack. He survived by being careful, quiet, and smart. But more than anything, he survived because of one strange friendship. He had found the creature, then just a small beast, wounded, barely breathing, under a rock slide. It had a broken leg and cuts across its body. Most people would have run. But Mark couldn't walk away. He had stayed. He made a small shelter, shared food, gave it water. And when it was safe, he talked to it. Not because he thought it would understand, but because it helped him stay sane. He had even named it Shadow. Shadow had followed him everywhere, learning his movements, his whistles, even his hand signals. It had become more than a creature. It had become family. Until one day, it vanished. A storm hit. Mark was knocked out. When he woke up, Shadow was gone. He searched for days, but found nothing. Then a rescue team arrived and pulled him off-world. He never thought he'd see Shadow again. But now, it was here. Bigger, stronger, deadlier. But the same calm eyes were there. The same stillness when Mark spoke. In the command center of the alien ship, Captain Vel reviewed security footage. Again and again, he watched the moment the beast stood up calmly when Mark approached. It sat, Vel said slowly, like a trained animal. A female officer beside him, thin and covered in silver armor, frowned. Maybe it's learned behavior. Or maybe the human used some kind of chemical? No, Vel replied. This isn't science. It's something deeper. He rewound the video again. In the footage, the creature sniffed the air before it moved. That's when the connection started. Vel's eyes narrowed. The human smells familiar to it. Familiar? The officer repeated. As in ... they've met? Vel nodded slowly. I don't believe in coincidences. Meanwhile, in the cage room, Shadow lay curled in the corner. But its eyes weren't closed. They followed every step outside the field, especially when the hallway camera made a soft click signaling someone was watching. Shadow didn't growl. It didn't roar. But it raised its head and gave a slow, low hum. A hum that only one person in the galaxy would understand. Later that night, Mark returned. This time without tools. No scanner, no whistle. Just a quiet walk and a soft look. He stood near the cage again. The guards were still watching, but from a distance. No one wanted to get too close anymore. Hey, buddy, Mark whispered. Inside, the beast stood. Its massive form cast a long shadow on the floor. It didn't charge. It didn't growl. It simply walked to the edge of the cage and stopped. Mark knelt down and placed his hand near the energy field, just inches from the barrier. You remember me, don't you? The creature lowered its massive head. Its nose pressed gently against the glowing energy, just close enough to match the spot near Mark's hand. Mark smiled. You're still the same, just ... bigger. He took out a small object from his jacket, a tiny broken charm made of bones and metal wires. He had made it back then, just before the storm. When Shadow saw it, it let out a deep sound mix between a growl and a sigh. the kind it made when it was safe. From behind the glass, Captain Vell and the silver officer watched everything. Their eyes widened. "This is not just memory," the officer said. "It trusts him." Vell stood straight. "This is dangerous. If the humans contain Deathworld creatures like this, they're far more dangerous than we ever imagined." Back in the hall, Mark stood up. "I don't know what they're planning to do to you," he whispered, "but I won't let them hurt you again." The beast blinked slowly. Then it did something none of the aliens had ever seen. It lay down peacefully like a dog at its master's feet. A warning light blinked behind them. But Mark didn't notice. Something had just tripped the ship's systems. Asterisk. Warning lights flashed red across the alien ship's halls. Intrusion detected. Deck 7. Power systems unstable. Captain Vell stormed into the control room. "Status report now." A nervous alien technician replied, "Sir, we've been hit with a pulse wave. Unknown source. Shields held, but internal systems were affected. Containment fields. Some are destabilizing." Vell's eyes widened. "Which ones?" The technician swallowed. "Cage 14B, sir. The creature." Mark was already halfway down the hall when the second alarm rang. The lights flickered, and the air hummed with broken energy. As he turned the final corner toward the containment area, the first thing he saw was smoke white, hissing vapor spilling from the wall units. The second thing he saw stopped him cold. Shadow's cage was dimming. The blue glow of the energy field flickered dangerously. The protective shield, what kept the deadly creature locked inside, was collapsing. Guards scrambled around the hallway, shouting orders and pulling back. "Get the blast shields down. Seal the corridor. It's going to break out. Run." But the beast hadn't moved. Shadow stood inside the cage, its glowing red eyes fixed not on the guards, not on the alarms, but on Mark. Captain Vell and the silver-armored officer arrived just as a security drone exploded near the wall. Sparks flew. A nearby panel burst open, spraying heat and sparks. The cage field dropped to 50%. "Pull everyone back," Vell shouted, but Mark didn't move. He walked slowly, calmly toward the flickering cage. "Human, stop," the officer yelled. "It will kill you." Mark turned his head slightly. "No, it won't." And he looked at the beast. "Shadow," he whispered. The creature stepped forward, calm but powerful, until it stood at the very edge of the failing field. Red warning lights bounced off its black skin. Mark raised his hand, palm open. "Sit." The creature sat. Gasps rang out from the guards and officers watching. The energy field finally died with a soft hum. The cage door was open. Shadow was free, but it didn't attack, didn't roar, didn't move. It sat still, watching only Mark. Vell whispered, "That's not a beast." The officer muttered, "That's a soldier's pet." "No," Vell replied darkly. "That's worse. That's loyalty from a Deathworld predator. Loyalty to a human." Suddenly, a blast shook the ship. The lights went dark for 2 full seconds. Then emergency red lights bathed the hallway. The alien systems began lockdown. Massive metal doors started sliding to block the corridor, sealing Section 7 in 30 seconds. The voice of the ship's AI warned. Mark looked back. If that door closed, he'd be cut off from Shadow and possibly killed by the ship's countermeasures. The guards yelled, "Get out, now!" But Mark turned to the creature. "Come with me." The beast rose slowly, gracefully. It walked beside Mark like a silent shadow. Together, they stepped out of the cage, and the ship watched in stunned silence as the human and the monster walked side by side, without chains, without fear. Inside the bridge, confusion turned into panic. "They're coming up the main corridor." "The creature's loose. Why isn't it attacking?" "Because it's following him like a guard dog." Captain Vel punched the console. "Shut down the A. We need to trap them." "But the ship's core A," I answered first. Unable to comply, priority override detected. From human ID, Mark Varus. Vel stared at the screen. "He has council-level access?" The officer turned pale. "That human is not a technician. He's something else." Down in the elevator shaft, Mark placed his hand on the panel. It accepted his code instantly. "Shadow," he whispered again. "Stay close. Things are going to get dangerous now." The beast made a low rumble, the same sound it used to make when it sensed danger on the death world. Mark smiled. "Good to know you still remember." The doors closed behind them. In the viewing hall, the aliens who once mocked humanity watched the screens in silent horror. One of the elders leaned back, whispering, That thing could have torn us all apart, but it didn't." Another asked, "What kind of species earns loyalty like that? From monsters?" Captain Vel didn't answer. He just watched the screen where the human walked calmly through fire, and fear leading the galaxy's most feared creature like a friend. Asterisk. The Galactic Council station floated like a silver crown above the planet Rethan Prime. It was the largest political structure in the known galaxy, where the oldest and most powerful species gathered to keep order. Now all of them were nervous. The broadcast had gone viral among high command. A Deathworld creature had escaped its cage. It didn't kill anyone. It followed a human. Obeyed him. Inside the council chamber, dozens of alien representatives whispered in hushed, fearful voices. "Did you see the footage?" It walked beside him like a trained soldier. No, it walked beside him like a brother. Then the main doors opened. 2 figures entered the room. Mark stepped forward calmly, eyes focused, back straight. And beside him, padding across the polished floor like a silent storm, was the beast. Shadow. The silence was instant. No chains. No shock collar. No guards. Just a human and a nightmare walking side by side into the galaxy's highest room. One council member, an insectoid general, stood and shouted, "That creature is a Class 7 bioweapon. Why has it not been restrained?" Mark didn't answer. Shadow didn't even look at the general. Instead, the beast slowly walked forward directly toward the central podium. Guards raised their weapons. Mark held up a hand. "Stand down." They froze. Not because they trusted him, but because the creature had paused, sitting calmly, as if waiting for Mark's words. "This is not a weapon," Mark said. "This is a being. Intelligent, loyal, and once it was left for dead." He turned toward the council. "I didn't capture it. I didn't train it. I helped it." The council murmured. Captain Vel was present now, too. He stood at the side, arms crossed, fuming. "He used the creature to override the ship's AI," Vel barked. "He's dangerous." Mark turned toward him. "The only danger is assuming loyalty equals control. I didn't order it to follow me. It chose to." Vel stepped forward. "What if it chooses not to next time? What happens when it turns on us?" Mark looked back at Shadow. Then, to the surprise of every being in the room, he turned his back to the beast. Mark stood still, back fully exposed. No weapon, no shield. If it wanted to harm you, or me, it would have. The room froze. Shadow didn't move. No growl. No lunge. Just calm, steady breathing. Finally, Mark turned back around. That creature lived with me, ate beside me, watched my back while monsters hunted us both. It doesn't serve me. It remembers kindness. In the upper balcony, the ancient Eldari ambassador leaned over and spoke. "Tell me, human, what is it called?" Mark smiled softly. "Shadow." The Eldari nodded. "And how long has it remembered you?" 4 years, Mark said. "On a planet that kills memory and life." "In hours." A deep silence fell again. Then, without a word, Shadow stood and walked to the center of the room. Every weapon tracked it, but Shadow didn't look at the weapons. It turned toward the council and bowed its head. In action. No one expected. An action not taught but chosen. The silver-armored officer from before stepped forward, eyes filled with wonder. "It's not just loyalty," she said. "It respects him." A second council member, one with green-scaled skin, whispered, "This changes everything. What if humans can bond with more creatures like this?" Another one answered with fear in his voice, "Then we are no longer the top of the chain." Captain Vell stepped toward Mark again. "This bond, this friendship, it could be used to build armies of monsters." Mark shook his head. "You don't understand. It's not about monsters. It's about trust." Shadow walked back to his side. Mark placed a hand on the creature's head, and once more the galaxy saw what they feared the most, not a powerful beast, but a human who made the most dangerous thing in the galaxy sit peacefully with a single touch. In that moment, somewhere, deep in the council records, an AI quietly updated a file. New threat level assigned. Humanity, code red reason. They don't conquer with weapons. They conquer with loyalty. The council chamber was divided. After Mark and Shadow left, arguments exploded like thunder across the marble floor. "He's hiding something." "No, he's proven loyalty." "It obeyed him like a machine." "No, like a friend." "Captain." Vell slammed his fist on the podium. "This is not about friendship. That thing is from a death world. It has claws longer than my arm. What if it turns?" A quiet voice cut through the noise. It belonged to Counselor Doron, a small elder creature, with a body of pale crystal and glowing veins. "Perhaps," Doran said slowly, "the real question is not if the beast will turn, but why it never did in the first place." Silence followed, because a human earned its trust. Meanwhile, deep inside the council living quarters, Mark sat beside Shadow on a private observation deck. The stars outside were bright, but his mind felt dark. Shadow lay curled like a mountain beside him, still, calm, breathing slow and heavy. "I don't think they get it," Mark whispered. "You're not a threat. You're you." Shadow gave a soft grunt, almost like a sigh. Mark reached out and scratched behind its jaw just like he used to, back on the death world. The creature leaned into the touch. "You remember, don't you?" he said. "How we ran through the storms. How you saved me that night when the sky was burning. How I shared my last food with you." A deep hum came from Shadow's throat. Not a growl. A sound of comfort. But peace didn't last. Long. The door behind them hissed open. 3 council security officers stepped in. "Human Mark Varus," one said. "By council order, the creature is to be removed from your care for further study." Mark stood slowly. "Study?" The officer didn't blink. "It will be examined, physically, biologically, and if needed, mentally." Mark's face darkened. "You mean tortured?" "It is protocol." Mark stepped in front of Shadow. "You're not taking him." "He is not your pet," another officer snapped. "No," Mark said quietly. "He's my friend." The officers raised weapons. "Step aside." Shadow growled low and long. The lights in the room flickered slightly. Mark raised a hand. "No, Shadow, easy." The beast stopped. Mark looked at the officers again. "You'll regret this." Later. That day, Shadow was locked inside a high-security chamber, far beneath the council halls. Heavy doors. Force fields. Sedation gas ports. Every measure possible to contain it. Mark watched from behind thick glass. His fists were clenched out inside the chamber. Shadow paced, not with anger. With confusion. It sniffed the air, then the walls, then sat quietly near the door facing where Mark stood. Outside, Counselor Doran approached him. You warned them. They didn't listen. Mark nodded. I didn't come here for war. I came to help. And yet, Doran said, you may have just shown us why humans are feared across the stars. In another room, several military counselors debated. We must clone it. Replicate the loyalty programming. Maybe inject human DNA. That's clearly the key. Know if we study the human brain, maybe we can understand the link. Captain Vell spoke last. Enough. I will extract what we need from the human directly. With or without his agreement. Hours passed. Mark sat alone. Quiet. Waiting. Until the alarm rang. Subject Shadow resisting sedation. Cage stress at 89%. Possible containment failure. Mark jumped to his feet. On the screens, Shadow thrashed inside the cell, but not violently. Not to attack. It was pawing the wall. Trying to reach Mark. Not in rage. In panic. Mark bolted down the hall. Back at the containment lab, guards swarmed the entrance. You can't go in. A technician shouted. Mark shoved past. He thinks I left him. Inside, Shadow had backed. Into the corner. Its breathing was fast. It made a sound no one had ever heard, something like a whimper. Mark burst into the viewing bay and slammed his hand on the override panel. The door hissed open. Gas alarms flared. Guards yelled, "Don't!" Too late. Mark walked in. Everyone held their breath. Shadow turned. In an instant. The growling stopped. The panic disappeared. And then quietly, it walked to Mark and laid its massive head against his chest. Cameras recorded everything. A death-world beast, shaking with fear. Now calm because one human came back. Later that evening, Counselor Doran showed the video to the others. They watched as Mark knelt, holding the beast's head with both arms. A stillness that said more than any weapon. No leash, no chains, just trust. Doran spoke softly. You call it a weapon. I call it proof. The council was ready. Inside the high court chamber, dozens of leaders from across the galaxy sat in there. Glowing chairs, eyes cold, voices sharp. They had made their decision. The vote had passed by a narrow margin. Shadow would be taken, studied, dissected, replicated. For the safety of the galaxy. Mark stood at the center of the hall, fists clenched, heart pounding. You're making a mistake, he said. Captain Vell stepped forward. The mistake was letting you near that creature. Mark shook his head. You still don't understand. Shadow didn't bond with me because I controlled him. He chose me. That can't be cloned. That can't be copied. The Eldari ambassador leaned in. Then what would you have us do, human? Let the galaxy tremble every time such a creature appears? Mark looked straight at him. No, I'd ask you to respect the one thing you've forgotten. Loyalty isn't forced. It's earned. In the hangar bay, Shadow was already inside a special transport pod, sedated, locked, and surrounded by 20 guards. They believed he was asleep. They believed wrong. Inside the pod, Shadow's eyes blinked open slowly. He was waiting. Back in the chamber, Mark's voice turned quiet. I won't let you take him. Captain Vell smirked. And what will you do, human? Stand against the entire council? Mark smiled, not cruelly, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Certainty. I won't have to. He tapped a small device on his wrist. All lights in the council chamber flickered out for an eye. Second. And then, boom. The entire station rumbled as blast doors across the hangar failed open. The security lights turned red. And across all screens, one sentence appeared in bold. He is not yours to take. Shadow stepped out of the ruin. Pod fully awake, fully alert. He didn't growl. He didn't attack. He waited. Mark ran through the halls, guards chasing him. But every time they got close, the lights cut out, doors sealed behind him, and alarms MISFI RED. Someone or something was helping him. He reached the hangar just as Shadow leaped from the platform onto the floor. The beast's eyes met his. No fear, no rage, only trust. Behind them, dozens of weapons were raised. Alien troops filled the chamber. Captain Veal arrived, shouting, "Take them down. The human has violated council orders." Mark raised his hands. "I don't want to fight." He placed his palm on Shadow's massive side. "But I will if I have to." Before anyone could react, a blast rang out from the far end of the hangar. A human warship, small, sleek, dark decloaked, right inside the station. The room froze. The ship's voice echoed through the hangar. "Retrieval request confirmed. Package identified. Mark Varus and companion entity Shadow. Extraction protocol initiated." Guards panicked. Who authorized this? How did it get through shields? "It's a ghost ship. It has no transponder." Mark and Shadow ran as the hangar opened. The ship's bay lowered, engines glowing. Mark turned to the stunned council guards. "You wanted to study him. You should have studied why he never left me." Shadow stopped at the ramp and looked back just for a second. Then, calmly, he followed Mark inside. The ship lifted. Weapons locked on. Council voices screamed across radios. "Shoot it down." But it was too late. The human vessel vanished in. A silent flash of light gone before even a trigger was pulled. Later, in a quiet dark room, the council reviewed the footage. Again and again, they saw the same scene. A beast from a death world, feared across systems, refusing to attack, refusing to leave, until the human gave the signal. In a final meeting, the Eldari ambassador stood. "The lesson here is simple," he said. "Power did not control that creature. Fear did not contain it. Love did." Captain Vel snarled. "So, what now? Let them run free?" Doran spoke quietly. "No, but from now on, when a human walks in with a monster by their side, maybe we ask who the real monster is." Final scene. On the ship, Mark sat beside Shadow in a small cabin. He leaned back, tired but smiling. "We made it." Shadow curled around him like a living wall, eyes slowly closing. And Mark whispered, "Next time, let's stay out of politics." Shadow snorted like a laugh. Stars passed by outside the window, and the galaxy would never forget what it saw that day. Not just a deadly beast, not just a brave human, but something even rarer, unshakable trust between death and kindness. Asterisk.